I'd like to call to order the Avalon City Council meeting of Tuesday, February 15th. We please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we could please have a few moments of silence for Father Bill Ruther, who passed away this last Saturday. Please be seated. And if we could please have the roll call.
Councilmember De La Rosa.
Here.
Councilmember Lavelle.
Here.
Councilmember Ponce.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy.
Here.
Mayor Marshall.
Here. And the city manager, I believe we have an announcement.
We do, Mayor. Thank you. I would just like to announce that just prior to the meeting tonight, I had a phone conversation with the Chamber, who, as council is aware, we have item number 10 on your agenda tonight, which is a request submitted to the city through the Chamber for consideration of implementation of a T-bid. The Chamber has requested at this time that that item be pulled from the agenda, with the understanding that they will request it be placed on at a future date, that as soon as we get aware or brought to our attention, we'll let council know, but it will not be on tonight's agenda. And I think it does make the most sense to pull that from the agenda, since it's at their request to put it on and it's at their request to remove it.
Excellent. Okay. And I have a question. Do we also have our city attorney on board?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm here now.
Okay. Thank you. All righty. Any other announcements or written communications?
I do. The announcements just for any future candidates that are out there in our city of Avalon. It is nomination time to pull your papers for your nominations, and it is between now and Friday, March 11th at 5 p.m. is when it closes. We ask you to please call City Hall, and you can make an appointment so we can carefully go through the packet with you, so you know how to circulate your petitions and all the other information that goes along with the election, which is on Tuesday, June 7th. It is also vehicle season, which is now and all the way till April 1st, and that is Monday through Thursday from 8 to 12 and 1 to 4.
Great. That's it. Okay, thank you very much. We have no presentations. Department head reports?
Annie, I'm sorry, I apologize. I did have a lot of written communication regarding the item that got pulled from the agenda, and that's all been provided to the council through the day.
Yes, thank you. Under.
Well, no, just on this that you just pulled. So all the written communication that was submitted, if it comes back on the agenda, are we going to have to resubmit all that again?
Scott Campbell, that's a question for you. The question in the audience is that all the written communication that was submitted for item 10 tonight, can we include that in the next time it is on the agenda, or do everybody that sent a written communication need to reissue it?
You're on mute.
Scott, are you there?
It looks like he's muted.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, those letters will be attached to the next agenda, and they'll be part of the package that will be sent out whenever this item is next appears on the agenda.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Bob Greenlaw.
Good evening. Bob Greenlaw, Director of Public Works. Got 3 items for you tonight. Pebbley Beach Road revetment repairs. Last Wednesday, the California Coastal Commission voted unanimously to approve the city's coastal development permit for the Pebbley Beach Road revetment project. That was the last permit that we took a very long time to get them to move to getting that in front of the Coastal Commission staff, and that was mainly because of COVID, and they were working remotely. Staff is currently finalizing any changes to the plans as a result of those permit conditions, but they're very minor. And then the second item is the Five Corner utility and grading phase of the construction contract. Staff held a pre-bid meeting for the project, both in person and virtually, last Thursday. 3 contractors were in attendance. The meeting was non-mandatory, so hopefully we will gain additional bidders by the March 8th bid deadline. Anybody interested in the project can go to the city's home webpage at thecityofavalon.com and click on the 5 Corners RFP link under the events heading. And the third item, the active transportation plan. The city has a special city council meeting scheduled for February 22nd at 5 p.m. To consider adoption of the active transportation plan. This plan is available on the city's home webpage, cityofavalon.com, under the heading Capital Improvement Projects. Then click the link under Avalon Active Transportation Plan. The file is large, so be patient. It takes about 15 to 30 minutes to download. So click on it and don't re-click it, and then just let it download, so go off and do something else while it's downloading. It's about 400 pages.
Geez.
But it's available to everybody, and we encourage everybody to dig in and provide any additional input. And then that'll be in front of you on the 22nd for adoption.
And there's a copy in the lobby that they can
Also,
come and
yes,
look.
and they can contact me here at City Hall too.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions?
No? And you're making a lot of progress on the Taco Bell bathrooms.
Yes, we have one last piece of flashing, then we'll uncover it. That should be a 50-year roof. Those look like clay tile, but they're not. It's composite material to make it look like clay. And the flashing that we had manufactured over on the mainland with a contractor, very high quality job, so that should hold up for a long, long time.
Excellent, looks nice. Yeah, thank you. Harbor Master? Well, we're losing our audience. Go home and turn us on.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. As I told you last meeting, I would have an update for you on Mole Float 2. Mole Float 2 is near completion with a splash date scheduled for this Friday, February 18th. It looks as though we are within our budget and we're able to have all the punch list items completed on that float. So I hope to have the float back as soon as this weekend, pending the weather. The next phase of our float rehab will start Tuesday, February 22nd, when the harbor maintenance crews as well as the mooring service personnel will work to disconnect float number 3, the one closest to the express offices. Towing will be scheduled for the following day, Wednesday, February 23rd. Refurbishment and repairs are expected to last to the end of March. Catalina Express and Catalina Flyer have been very supportive during this period of adjustment working with us. Since my last report on February 1st, we have experienced some very nice periods of summer-like weather with calm sea conditions. Boaters took full advantage of the long President's Day weekend as boaters showed up in droves on Friday and Saturday. The numbers showed that Patrol moored 375 boats for a total of 1,452 nights. Patrol responded to 3 medical calls, of which one was a minor medical first aid. Patrol warned and advised 3 individuals of municipal code violations and did 124 security patrols at facilities. The gale warning in effect tonight is forecasted to give way to calmer conditions tomorrow. We expect that the RCI Navigator will be here tomorrow and normal tendering operations will be able to go forward as scheduled. Any questions? Thank you.
No, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, City staff, Michael Alegria, Fire Chief. After last council meeting, we had a small fire at the Canyon Club, dryer fire. Clean your lint traps, home, businesses, everybody. Luckily, minimal damage. Employees kept it small with the fire extinguisher, and then our guys came in and did the rest. Code now, it will be under my supervision. we've been working with Denise, Efrain, and Miguel and myself the last few weeks in transition, so code will now be back with the fire department.
It used to be a long time ago? Yeah. That's great.
By next meeting, we will have more dates. Once they lift more mandates, we'll be able to publish for CPR classes, so everyone can get their classes done before summer. So before next meeting, we'll come up with the list of dates to announce for March, April, and May for CPR dates. And also, please contact us if you would like your business or yourself to do a fire extinguisher class. We have a bunch to get rid of and a prop to do it.
Great, good. Any questions? No, thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. I've got some great news to report on two issues I know we've been talking about for a period of time. And the first issue is our body-worn cameras are just a few weeks out. And we've had to work out some connectivity issues that majority of people do face here on the island. And we were a few months even from today scheduled to get them, but we managed to work out a high speed connection through the Catalina broadband, and so we have a gap in between before the tower goes up in the interior that we'll be able to begin recording, downloading, and reviewing all the camera footage. The cameras will be utilized during all calls of service as well as public contacts. And a great feature of this technology is that the camera will go back 60 seconds prior to the deputy activating the camera. So it's actively recording, but until the deputy activates it per our policy and procedures, it'll go back 60 seconds to show anything that may have been going on prior to the contact. So that's been a great tool. Also with this technology, they'll be able to provide a live stream to a variety of units, and we're doing a test run with our mental evaluation team. So when someone is in a mental health crisis, the deputies on scene will be there. Their cameras are obviously recording, and the clinicians and the deputies who are part of the mental evaluation team will be able to do an assessment in live time as to what's going on and what advice and direction they can give us in the field. And that's just one of the first experimental units that will be able to live stream, but there may be time in future where as supervision, as management, we can also tap in to see what's going on live in real time. So that's a great benefit to this technology. And we anticipate on March 2nd to have all of our folks trained up. And we do have some that are trained already, and we'll be issued our cameras, and so you'll see everybody wearing a camera on their chest, including myself. So we're really looking forward to that. And the transparency and the risk and liability that come into play for prosecution. It's a great tool, but in discovery, the defense will also have this footage. So all in all, it's a great package for us to finally get there. So secondly, we have a threat assessment team that will be coming to the island. And this is a team comprised of specialists from the Sheriff's Department, 2 fire departments, Homeland Security, and they're going to do an assessment of all of our civic and governmental buildings for vulnerabilities, for recommendations, and different types of public safety and general hardening of our areas. And that's going to be a service free of charge to the city and to everybody else. It's a service that the Sheriff's Department does provide, and I managed to retain them. They'll be out here for 2 days doing walkthroughs and assessments of all of our facilities and seeing what recommendations we can do to be safer. So,
is it just government buildings?
We have the school as an option as well.
Oh, okay.
If the school district is open to that. So we have the school and then all the government buildings included in that as well. So I haven't gotten the buy-off from the district just yet, but as soon as we do, I'll let you know as well. And we can include them, including the hospital as well. So, and all in all, it's been pretty slow. Valentine's weekend was lovely and quiet. So we're very pleased that nothing significant's been going on.
And how was your trip to, was it to Washington for?
It was to New York, actually.
Oh,
So
New
my
York?
last trip was to New York, and I led a delegation of sheriff's deputies who paid tribute to Officer Mora, meeting with his family, with his brothers. There were several thousand peace officers that went. Sheriff Villanueva went the week prior for Officer Rivera. There were a partner team that were shot and killed out in New York, and it's just a great tribute to be part of that, and a great honor to lead the delegation and, as I mentioned, meet with this family, which was something we didn't really expect, but they were very moved by us coming from Los Angeles to pay tribute to their loved one, and as well as members throughout the department.
Yeah, that was nice. Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I just wanted to commend you guys on the kids on bikes. Much better. My only concern is that there are a few that get ridden at night with no light.
Okay.
And because most of them are painted black with the big black tires, you can't see them. So if you could just keep an eye out for that. But to me, it's so much better than what it was.
It is.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Evening, Council. Matt Baker, Finance Department. I'll be providing an update on revenues as part of the mid-year budget update, but if you have any questions for me on other topics, I'm here to answer them.
So we should just, if so, instead of just taking it and filing, should we ask you now, or should we ask you and just pull that item?
He's going to give a presentation.
Okay, the way you said, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Dave.
Good evening, council members. February 6th, we had our most successful kite day. We had approximately about 60 people come through to JMF to fly a kite. We served hamburgers and hot dogs and sold multiple kites, so bellies were full and kites were in the air. Craig from the American Kite Association was there, and he taught kids how to fly and had a huge ball kite that he had made from scratch for the kids to play with. He got me on the phone with the president of the AKA, the American Kite Association, and they want to come next year and put a show on and really pump up our kite festival. So we're really excited about that. February 10th, our Pride Timers got together for lunch and strawberry roses at the Singing Waters to celebrate Valentine's Day. We had sugar heart cookies and designed them with red and white frostings as we dipped them in chocolate fondue. They made hearts and roses out of strawberries and dipped them in chocolate fondue. I just dipped my finger in the chocolate fondue. We were serenaded by Catalina Eddy on ukulele and a fellow celloist. All 14 participants had a good time, including ex-council member Ole Olson, who showed up for the first time.
He just came, okay.
Yeah,
he just
come up
went
with
to
cake.
eat the lunch. He didn't make any cookies.
I did see him underneath trying to make a rose, so I thought that
Okay.
was, I thought
He
that
showed
was
up
excellent.
late.
We have extended the RFP for JMF to this Thursday, February 17th. Since doing that, we have received more bids. So we will have some competing bids for the RFP, which I think will be great. And we are looking forward to bringing the vendor to council at the next March meeting.
And Dave, that's for, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, that's for the concession stand,
Yes, it
correct?
is for the
Okay.
concession stand. Yes, ma'am. Our new 2002 Spring and Summer Activities Guide will be coming out March 1st. It will be coming out in print and online if you go to recreation.cityofavalon.com. It will be up there, so look out for that. We will be having dog training classes and martial arts classes as some of our new programs. You also have to check out, because we're taking our rec leagues outside this summer to our outside venues. What else will we be having? Well, you're going to have to wait till March 1st for that. So look us up. Thank you. Do you have any more questions?
No, I just wanted to say thank you for attending Cal City's Policy Committee Community Services last Thursday. I appreciate you.
It was incredibly informative, and I'm hoping to make more of those meetings as I'm in this position. Thank you.
And thanks for Kite Day. It was really fun. We had a good time.
City Manager, do you have anything else to report?
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, I had a number of items to report tonight, but because our department heads are so thorough, I checked every item off my list, so I have nothing additional to report.
Excellent. And City Manager?
I just have one thing, and I just want to say that Dave has started his third week this week, and it's just been a real pleasure to get to know him better, and it's just such a great decision that the council made by picking him. We're very lucky that we stole him from Ohio, and I'm glad that his wife's going to be joining him very soon, and he's going to prove to be a very great asset to the city.
Yes. Okay, wonderful.
Thank you, Denise.
He's a quick study, too, let me tell you.
Yeah. Council member reports, you would like to start?
You going to ask Scott?
Oh, Scott, what do you want to talk about?
Nothing tonight other than I was very happy Sunday that I lost my voice halfway through the game and could not finish the game yelling as I was during the beginning.
What happened Sunday?
Okay.
Go Bengals.
Okay. I know. They almost had it. Council member reports.
I'll go first because I did attend Community Services Policy Committee with Cal Cities Thursday as we set our agenda for the rest of the year. And like I said, I was very happy that David Hart joined us. To have city staff see what goes on in these is, I think, very important and very educational for them. So,
yeah.
But that's all I have.
Just a couple things. Attended a meeting at the invitation of BizFed and the LA Orange County Broadband Consortia, and the group attending included members from Catalina Broadband, Golden State Network, Verizon, SCAG, AT&T, USC, and a number of other entities. The discussion was very positive and provided a number of avenues for potential funding that hadn't been reviewed and checked out yet. So hoping for some good stuff out of that. And had a connectivity meeting since we met last. And then we'll be attending the Middle Mile Broadband Committee meeting on Friday, February 18th as well. That's all I got. Oh, and attended a Kite Day, which was really fun.
Yeah.
I recommend it next time. You guys should get out there.
Okay. Yesenia?
Yes, also just a couple things. I attended the LA County Youth Commission Mental Health Panel on February 10th, and I also got invited to a meeting by Catalina Island Women's Forum to meet with Su Casa's program director, Lily Lopez. And lucky enough for us, they're going to be joining us on our next regular council meeting, which is March 1st. And they'll be letting us know about the services that they'll be able to provide for Avalon.
Great.
Oh, and then if anyone does have questions for them before the council meeting, please go ahead and email it to info@theciwf.org.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't have a report for this evening, but Councilmember De La Rosa's comment prompted me to think that it might be a good idea for us to re-engage with the Women's Forum in the sense of perhaps inviting them to a future council meeting to talk, give a 5-minute presentation on what they do and services that are offered.
Cindy, they actually will also be joining Lily Lopez, so if there's anything we want to ask, maybe let them know before that council meeting.
Sure, yeah, I'll send an email. Thanks.
Awesome, thank you.
That's all I have.
Oren, I have a question. Has there been people wanting another Coast Guard class for their captain's license? Is that because I know we're losing some captains, and I think we need captains, but I don't know who wags the tail.
As far as the captain's license classes that we used to have here, as far as I know, there hasn't been enough demand from Avalon to put together a whole class.
Okay, because how many, I know when my grandson went, there was quite a few, about 3 years ago or so, but, okay. If they're interested though, should they call you and leave your name, and if it looks like
No, it's all operated, the two different companies merged into one out of San Diego, but they do have classes in Long Beach, from what I understand.
Okay.
So as far as Coast Guard license goes, the Harbor Department doesn't oversee any of that.
So they would just need to contact them directly?
Directly.
And
So, yeah, and if somebody's interested and they want to contact me about who I like or who I've used, I can point them in the right direction.
Okay, so they'll probably have to do it more individually than in a group
Yes.
over here?
Yes, correct.
Oh, okay. All righty, thank you.
And I do believe from my past looking into this there is some classes that are put together in Long Beach.
Oh, excellent. Okay, thank you. I was on the phone with Long Beach City College the other day, and again, today they called. A few years ago, David Hart and I don't remember who else went, we took a bunch of the students from Avalon over to Long Beach City. And it just so happened there was a career fair also that day with a lot of the trades and whatever. So I asked Sean from LBCC to contact the principal to see if they wanted to put something like that together so we could get these kids over, because they have all these certification courses. And I'd be happy to go along if it comes to fruition, but I'm just worried about our future labor force. And so hopefully that will come. And that's all I had. Okay, oral communication. This is an opportunity for members of the community to speak on items that are not on the agenda. You will be limited to 2 minutes and no action will be taken. And do you have anything, Denise?
I do not have any comments.
Okay. The audience, no? Okay. Consent, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Janice Hall, 334 Clarissa. And I would just like to take an opportunity to thank Orrin personally for his extra care that he's giving to Casino Point in terms of keeping the smell of ammonia at bay, because he's bringing out Dave with the falcon, is it falcon and the owl, and they're coming regularly, and I think it's working. People aren't having headaches as much, and because of the bird problem that turns to ammonia.
Okay.
So it was really making people sick. So we appreciate everything that you guys could do to,
keep that going.
Care for that.
Thank you, Janny.
Thank you, Janny. I appreciate the nice comment. But the credit does go to the falconry program and the fact that the city supports that. And then Dave has put a focus on that area out there, which has been a really bad area. And I do appreciate it because it does affect the boaters in those outer rows. So thank you.
Yeah. Oh, great. Thank you. Okay. Consent calendar?
Thank you, Mayor. First item is we're seeking approval of the minutes from the February 1st, 2022 regular City Council meeting.
Do you
want to do all four?
Do you just want to kind of read them all four and then we'll?
Oh, all of them? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Item number 2 is warrants. Approve the total expenditures for the January 24th, 2022 through February 4th, 2022, totaling $814,373.16. Item 3, we are seeking for adoption of a resolution authorizing the city manager to serve as the director of finance, or to serve as the director and the finance director to serve as the alternate director to the California Intergovernmental Risk Authority Board of Directors, and also adopt a resolution authorizing the finance director to serve as the director and the city manager to serve as the alternate director of the California Transit Systems Joint Powers Authority Board of Directors. Item 4 is a wastewater treatment plant sewer outfall. We are looking to adopt a resolution ratifying a prior action, we thought that this had already been approved by council, but it had not, seeking to authorize the city manager to execute a lease agreement with the California State Lands Commission for areas of Pacific Ocean adjacent to Pebbly Beach Road for the 25-year term beginning September 21st, 2021.
Is there a motion? Or
I'll make a motion to approve items 1 through 4 consent.
I'll second.
Okay, call for the vote.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy? Aye. Mayor Marshall?
Aye. And item number 5.
Item number 5 is fiscal year 22 mid-year financial results, proposed budget amendments, and we have Matt here to make a presentation seeking council's acknowledgement of the receipt of the mid-year financial results for 21-22 and authorize the proposed budget amendments as outlined in Exhibit A to this report, and Matt will go through that.
Excellent.
Evening again, Council. I just wanted to begin with kind of an update on where the reserves stand as of the end of fiscal year 21, so that's as of June 30th, 21. There was a pretty significant difference between kind of where we budgeted, where we would be ending fiscal year 21 and where we ended up. Fortunately, it's very positive news to share, but I did want to provide just a brief explanation of the variance. So as you can see on the slide here, this is the general fund budget to actual reconciliation, looking at left to right where we budgeted fiscal year 21 to be, beginning with a reserve of about 4.2 million and ending the year with an anticipated reserve of just over 2.3 million. As part of the budget adoption process, I provided an estimate of where I thought we would stand at the end of fiscal year 21. And that estimate had revenues, or I had the ending reserves at about 5 million. And then the audited financials that were presented were 6.7 million. And so to kind of explain how I got that difference of 5 to 6.7, really there's two sources. One of them being TOT revenues. So when I was budgeting as part of the mid-year explanation, or at the beginning of the year as part of the budget adoption process, I was still using estimates for April, May, and June. I was making those estimates at approximately what our pre-COVID April, May, and June had been. But April, May, and June of 21 exceeded even pre-COVID numbers by 60%. And that's a big part of the explanation of how you could go from the 5 to the 6.7. The other piece is kind of how the transfer to the harbor ended up being accounted for in the financials, and I'll go over that in another slide. But again, we finished the year with an unassigned fund balance or reserves in the general fund of the 6.78 million. The harbor's a little more difficult to do the full budget to actual just because of how some non-cash transactions are accounted for in the audited financials. But in general, we were looking at a budget we adopted with draws of 2.9 million. That was after the mole adjustment of, I believe it was another 500,000. At the time of building the 22 budget, we anticipated draws on reserves of about 548,000. And the harbor didn't have any reserves at the time, so any of that amount would need to be covered by the general fund. And then trying to kind of back out the non-cash transactions, I have an actual loss on reserves of about 200,000. So kind of to see it in a different way, looking at the statement of cash flows, what you can see is we had what's called a due to, essentially a loan from the general fund. That's a short-term borrowing of 600,000. So that would need to be either repaid within a year, or we would need to do an interfund loan, similar to what we've done in the past with the sewer fund. But I believe we're going to be able to repay it within the current fiscal year. And the reason why I say that is the 600,000 wasn't necessarily the deficit in the fund. It was just, the majority of it had to do with timing differences of when we receive May and June revenues. So if you look at the statement of net position, accounts receivable and taxes receivable were about 650,000. against payables and accrued liabilities of 180. So that 600,000 doesn't all need to be made up from this year's revenue because some of it's sitting in that receivable balance. That being said, the working capital is the target measure we use for the harbor fund, and there still is a negative working capital in the harbor of 400,000. Stated in our budget and fiscal policies, our target reserve level using working capital as a measure is about 3 million for the harbor. So, while we're certainly in a much stronger position, than we thought we'd be heading into fiscal year 22, we don't have the target reserve levels in the harbor, and while the general fund's slightly kind of above our target levels, it's not enough to offset that. That's heading into this year. Fortunately, we have more good news to share in the presentation. Just as kind of a quick reset, when we adopted the budget, we had a few of our kind of targets kind of overriding everything we were doing. We wanted to maintain a structurally balanced budget, so that meant our recurring expenditures were covered by recurring revenues, and any one-time revenue could then be used for a one-time expenditure, capital projects, things of that nature. The other kind of priority we have is to make sure we're projecting revenues in a way that's not likely to lead to a budget shortfall. So again, we want to be conservative, but we also don't want to be so conservative that we consistently and substantially underestimate revenues. It's been a challenge to predict revenues given the dynamics of the pandemic, but as hopefully things return more towards normal, I would expect our projections to be a little more aligned with actual. That being said, my goal is always to make sure I'm coming in under where we or coming in over where we had budgeted to be. And then the last thing is just the targeted reserve levels. We set them in the general fund at about 6 months of operating revenues or expenditures. The harbor at 4 months plus 500,000 for capital reserves. And then sewer, saltwater, solid waste have a 3-month target, and that was planned out as part of the cost of service study.
Matt, can I ask a quick question?
Yep.
Where do you project we are right now with an unrestricted fund balance? How many months of operating expenditures do we have now?
Probably 7-8 months. I would guess in the general fund. I mean, it's tricky due to the timing of when revenues come in and expenditures go out. But I would expect if we stick to kind of the track we're at, the general fund would have 7 to 8 million in reserves going into next year. And so that would, be approximately 2/3 of our annual budget.
Okay.
Maybe a little higher, 9 months maybe.
Thank you.
So jumping into the general fund, what I have here is a table showing the fiscal year 22 budget to the mid-year, so that's receipts as of December 31st. In general, what we would expect to see is revenues to be ahead of 50% because our busiest quarter of the year is July through September. Generally, we'd expect expenditures to be under that 50% number because of certain delays in contracts. So typically the December contract services wouldn't be paid till January, things of that nature. General fund, really strong numbers in revenues. TOT combined for hotel and vacation rental is already 88% of budget. Kind of our overriding approach going into fiscal year 22 was to make sure we set a TOT level we were confident of hitting. And so we had budgeted to be about, I think, between 95 and 98% of our pre-COVID TOT level. But the strong April, May, June continued into July, August, September, October. Even November and December weren't bad months either. And so it's really on track to be an unprecedented year for TOT. Similarly, sales tax is on track to cross kind of the $1 million mark, which the last time we did that was in fiscal year 17. So sales tax is up as well. Ad tax is strong as well. And then in the other revenues, we do have included in there 400,000 from the, butcher the acronym, but it's the fiscal recovery funds that were passed, I believe, in March. So we did receive our first installment payment in the first quarter of fiscal year 22, and we're expecting to receive the second installment in the second quarter. And so again, we are planning on using those funds to offset revenue losses that we had experienced in the prior fiscal year 20. And the rationale for that approach is that gives us the most flexibility with how we can then use those funds in the future. This table here is a comparison of the last 2 fiscal years at mid-year to the current fiscal year. So if you're going left to right, we have the fiscal year 22 budget, the mid-year number, fiscal year 21 and fiscal year 20. The percent of actuals is going to be kind of a difficult comparison just because the first half of fiscal year 21 was still impacted by COVID disruptions. So for example, our July of the last fiscal year was only about a 70% of normal visitor level from a TOT revenue standpoint. And similarly with fiscal year 20, we had major disruptions in the second half of the year. And so the numbers are going to be skewed almost in the opposite direction. But if you just look at fiscal year 22, kind of budget to where we're at, we're on track to exceed our budgeted revenues, and expenditures are in line with where we'd expect them to be.
So I have a question on the expenditures again. The bottom, the other,
Yeah.
what is the other?
So the biggest 2 pieces of that would be our TOT allocation to the chamber, as well as our hospital pass-through revenue. So we record the hospital sales tax portion as a revenue, and so that would fall in the other revenue side of the kind of the top half of that table.
Yeah.
But then what we do is we cut a check out to the hospital for the matching amount, and so probably 3/4 of the other expenditures are those 2 categories.
Yes, that was that little teeny footnote in that, but that we had here. But where is the LA County paramedic lifeguard cost?
So currently the lifeguard paramedic contract is entirely charged to the Harbor Fund. So that will come up in a later slide.
Oh, okay.
So again, just to kind of explain the rationale behind the decisions we made as a city, the tough decisions that we made over the last 2 fiscal years. If you look at the first quarter of the shutdown, our TOT revenues were down by $1 million just in the first 3 months of the pandemic. We did luckily rebound strongly in fiscal year 21, but we also reacted quickly in fiscal year 20 because we did not know at the time we'd have such a strong rebound as far as visitors and TOT. Similarly, last December, when the second round of restrictions hit, our visitor-driven revenues dropped to about 1/3 of the pre-COVID normal. And so, we're making these tough decisions as staff and finance, without the benefit of hindsight. And we made sure we put ourselves in the strong position we're in now. So again, in the 22 budget, we had estimated TOT to be about 95% of pre-COVID, and we're well on track to exceed those numbers. Currently, before the allocation to the chamber, we're up about $1.2 million for hotel TOT from where we had budgeted. Again, this is really unprecedented TOT levels compared to, you can go back as far as you want with the city's numbers, and it's just really unprecedented growth this year. Similar story for vacation rentals. Again, in the first 3 months of the pandemic, we went from $350,000 in TOT April to June from vacation rentals down to $59,000, and most of that was the second half of June once things started to open up. July, we saw TOT revenues of 70%. So last year when we did the fiscal year 21 budget, we kind of used that 70% as that conservative baseline. And again, TOT, and what I've done here is so the numbers won't exactly tie to the prior slide because I updated this through TOT received through last week. So as you can see, we've already exceeded our budget levels as of mid-year for vacation rentals. And again, it's really unprecedented growth. If you look at, say, July through September, for example, pre-COVID we did in fiscal year 19, we did $725,000. Pre-COVID at fiscal year 20, we did $819,000. And July to September of this year, we did 1.06 million in vacation rental TOT. So again, just it really doesn't even compare to how we've done in the past. It's been that strong of a first half. Real quick on sales tax, it's a similar story, maybe not quite to the same levels as TOT, but we're also seeing strong increases in taxable sales in the city. Kind of what the highlighted columns there show the Q3, so you can see the first July to September of last year, we're up about 40% from last summer, but that summer was impacted by COVID. So then kind of on the opposite side, what we have here is a breakdown of our budgeted operating expenditures in the general fund by department and by category. Again, like I said, we would expect to see most of these under 50%, just given the timing of when expenditures are paid. The one I did want to call out, because it did include a budget amendment, is for tree trimming service. We do have grant funds available to us by our general liability insurance provider, CIRA, formerly Parsec. And those are for risk mitigation purposes. We can access those grant funds, and we historically have used those funds to offset our tree trimming costs. Bob can give you a list a mile long of where we need to work, and so we have some plans we're hoping to address in the second half of the year with those funds. So moving into the harbor, similar story, maybe not quite the same level of revenue growth, but still revenues are on track to exceed where we had budgeted. Just to kind of break down, the other category includes our annual mooring permits and our transfer fees. Transfer fees is one of the more trickier revenues in the harbor to budget, because it's the fee we get on sales of moorings, so it's really difficult to predict how many moorings for how much are going to sell in a given year. What I'd done is I'd looked over the last 5 years, and it ranged from 70,000 to 350,000 in annual transfer fees, so we'd budgeted at 100. But the benefit of this is we're already over that 100 mark, and we can use anything in the second half of the year to help build those harbor reserves. But that's what's included in there. Expenditures are also generally in line to meet with estimates, but there were a few instances where I underestimated the cost on certain ones, and so we'll go over those in detail in the next few slides. But more or less, they are in line with estimates, with the revenues ahead of schedule.
So internal services, is that the county?
No, internal services is how we charge for finances time.
Oh, all administrative,
legal,
everything. Okay.
City manager,
Okay.
the garage. So I do have a slide where we go into those in more detail at the end of the presentation. So again, this is similar to the general fund. The mid-year comparisons are interesting, but because of the COVID's disruptions on the last 2 years, I don't know how much you can rely on the percentage comparisons. But as you can see, cross-channel wharfage is our biggest revenue in the harbor. And this is just looking at Fund 103, which is our harbor operating fund. Cross-channel wharfage was 1.34 million at mid-year. And if you compare it to pre-COVID fiscal year 20, it was 1.295. So again, we had only budgeted cross-channel wharfage to be about 90% of pre-COVID level. It's come in at 102% of COVID level, so it's certainly positive, especially compared to where we budgeted, but we're not seeing the 10, 20, 40% increase like we're seeing in TOT and sales tax revenues. Again, just to kind of highlight and drive home this fact, at mid-year in Harbor Fund, we had 3.85 in revenue received through the first 6 months, compared to 3.96 in pre-COVID first half of FY20. And the main reason for this difference is the cruise ship revenue that we have just started to bring in compared to pre-COVID visitor levels with cruise ships. So again, here's a more detailed breakdown month over month for cross-channel wharfage, since this is the largest revenue source for the Harbor Fund. You can see fiscal year 19 or comparing fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21 to fiscal year 19, both years were down about $500,000. Again, the capacity restrictions that were in place on cross-channel carriers, presented challenges during some of the busier months, as well as the restrictions mid-year also disrupted our cross-channel revenues. Again, one of the things we need to keep in mind when it comes to the cross-channel wharfage is that the only way we grow that revenue, since right now it is a set rate, is by increasing year over year the number of visitors. And so one of the things I want to do is make sure we're not operating so close to the limit where we need each year to be better than the next just to break even. So that's going to always play some challenges when presenting a structurally balanced harbor budget, but I think there are things we can do to help the harbor out as well. So this is a breakdown of Harbor Fund operating expenditures. We don't really have different departments within per se, but we do classify certain expenditures differently within the harbor. We have admin, which would be the harbor master and harbor office support staff. Operations is both harbor patrol and dedicated harbor maintenance crews. Public Works is our city public works crews whose time is allocated between the harbor and the general fund. And then we had a few fuel dock expenditures, really holdovers from kind of the transition process to the new lease operator that will come up in a later slide as well. So we do have harbor-specific insurance that we're required to maintain in the harbor. We combined it with what we had for the fuel dock as well. We did have budgeted an increase, but not to the extent our insurance did go up by. So we did request a budget amendment of $10,000. The second piece in this category is city attorney fees. That falls within that contract service on the upper right. The city had budgeted $5,000 in contract service fees for the city attorney, but we had come in around $13,000 as of mid-year, and that's largely attributable to the city attorney's work on the cruise ship memorandum of understanding. So we had more legal fees related to that. But I do want to highlight something, and Scott, if you're listening, you'll appreciate this slide. This is one I added, so council, this one is new to the deck you had previously received. Right here I have a breakdown of all legal expenditures by category. If you can see, going kind of backwards this time, right to left, fiscal year 19, we had $457,000 in city attorney related legal expenditures. In fiscal year 21, so that's on the kind of the middle of the slide, we only had 163. And this was a combination of Denise and Scott working together to really control costs, which definitely has helped me present more favorable budgets and budget updates. So I do appreciate everyone's efforts on those fees. That being said, we're still on track to come in below budget this year at an amount that's considerably less than what we were spending pre-COVID, even with the proposed budget amendment for the harbor.
No, that's good.
So jumping back into the harbor, and now we're looking in the harbor operations and harbor public works. We did have an update to the shoreboat subsidy. I had previously mentioned that we're going to look to see if we could find the funds elsewhere in the harbor to cover that for the 3-month period. But I am requesting a budget amendment for the increased contract that goes into effect March 15th of this year. So that's the increase for the 3.5-month window there. Then lastly, the Harbor Public Works. So if you can see, the total budget expenditures in Harbor Public Works are $1.3 million. Really, there's 3 main contracts that fall under that. It's the waterfront trash collection, the restroom maintenance, but the biggest one being the county lifeguard services. Those came in with a 5.5% increase from the prior year. I had budgeted a 2% increase. But that contract's a large contract, so that 3% difference is $26,000. So I am requesting an amendment for that difference.
So I guess this was my thought, and that's why I was asking about that. So the paramedics, though, roll on everything. not just harbor related. So why would they not be budgeted on some other part and not just be all put in the harbor?
So we are looking into the contract to see how we can better allocate those contract costs, because you're right, if the contract is servicing things outside of the harbor, we should be dividing up those costs between the general fund and the harbor.
Right.
So we are going to be looking at the contract. The challenge, at least as I recall the last time I looked, is there wasn't necessarily a clear delineation between what we were paying for lifeguard versus what we're paying for paramedic. But it is something we are going to be looking at as part of the next year's budget.
It's just rolled together, Annie.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
Not delineated.
I mean, because, we know how many we definitely, between the paramedics and the fire department, they know how many calls they roll on that are not in the harbor, when they go up to your house or my house or whatever. So, it seems like even those numbers could help with that, because.
And I do think that is one of the strategies we're going to be looking at as we build next year's budget, is making sure that we always strive to make sure we're allocating different contracts or different costs to the appropriate fund.
Right.
And so that is something we kind of have flagged to look at in more detail to make sure that contract is being allocated appropriately.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
And again, there were a couple of fuel dock related expenditures that we didn't plan for in the budget. Most of them appear to be one-time in nature or can be absorbed by other harbor fund accounts in the future. But we did have a charge for rent where the casino fuel tank is, which should just be a one-time charge. Maintenance of premises, then that was related to transitioning the fuel float to a position to where the lessee could take it over in a functioning manner. And then we also do have a annual county permit required for the underground fuel tank that the city would be responsible for. I believe that one is about $4,500, and so we'll make sure in future budgets to have that one called out. But there were budget amendments included in the staff report related to those expenditures. So jumping into the other major funds, sewer, saltwater, solid waste, nothing really to report in these. We are keeping a close eye on emergency maintenance costs in the sewer, but we think there are other budget adjustments we can do to cover that shortfall, so I don't anticipate any amendments in these 3 funds. Most of the work in these funds is contract services with our service providers for solid waste and sewer and saltwater. So internal service funds, so this is how we charge the various funds for the general administration costs, whether that's elected officials, city attorney, city manager's office, finance, and then some general government, city hall related expenditures. So as you can see, there's a breakdown, more or less we're in line with where we would expect. We are requesting a budget amendment of $25,000 for additional contract services, and that would be to look into making upgrades to our city's website. That number was a preliminary number. We're in early stages of that project, but we are looking to have a budget amendment to make sure we do have the funds available to pursue those updates. The other one I wanted to draw attention is in insurance. As you can see, our general liability insurance makes up the majority of that maintenance and operation number, and we are slightly over where we had budgeted. I am hoping that some of our other legal fees come in under budget, so we can do a budget adjustment rather than a budget amendment, but I may have to come back at a later date for that $17,000 right now that we are over for the annual general liability. Again, with the insurance, we do get an estimate from Parsec or Sierra, but when you get to large dollars, it only takes 1% or 2% difference to add up, and so we'll look at those estimates more carefully next year for going into the next year's budget. And then lastly, in vehicle maintenance, we do have a requested budget amendment of $35,000 and essentially what is the parts account. So historically, pre-COVID, we were spending anywhere from $120,000 to $140,000 on general parts, supplies, looking to save money where we could. I asked Bob and his team to, save every penny, and I think also because of furloughs and less usage, they did a very good job last year in keeping expenditures in that count real low. But as we start to build back more towards normal, we're seeing increased costs out of that account. Bob or Jamie, I'm sure, could give a better explanation specifically to it, but we are requesting a budget amendment for that purpose. That would increase the budget to 100, but still below kind of our pre-COVID spend in that account where we were spending 120 to 140. So real quick on capital projects. In the general fund, the big expenditure that we've already made is the JMF loan repayment. Just as an update on that, we do have 2 remaining payments scheduled, so fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24. And then my goal is once that's repaid to work with Dave to figure out how much we need to be setting aside each year. It won't be as expensive, but we do need to make sure we're setting money aside for when we do need to make some upgrades to the turf. We can kind of use that money we've gotten used to spending there to make sure we're setting money aside to keep the field looking good. The other piece that I wanted to talk on the general fund is with the other park improvements. So we did get a grant opportunity that was identified mid-year. I believe Dan in November presented 4 or 5 different parks ideas. The intent at the time was to use the available budget that was included in the budget for park improvements of $20,000 to use the unspent portion of that, about $15,000, to use as the local match for the current budget year. We can continue with that approach and get 2 of the 4 projects started this year. But alternatively, I wanted to present to council if we do a budget amendment, increasing the spend in that account, I believe by $23,000. Dave thinks he can, putting him on the spot wherever he went, Dave thinks he can make progress on all 4 of those projects in the first half of the year. And this would give him the flexibility to do that. Again, we can stick with the limited to 2 projects to start, and I believe the 2 he had earmarked as the most shovel-ready are the shades on Front Street, as well as the picnic area at Lover's Cove. But we're hoping if we could expand it, we might be able to get a contract for a vendor that could do multiple things and maybe save some money by expanding the projects that way.
Matt, does any of that commentary relate to proposed budget amendment items 11A and B? The items where you've got the Parks CIP proposed amended of $200,000 and the Parks grants proposed amendment?
So what that would be and how I would show it is we have additional expenditures, but those are going to be offset by grant revenues. So I am proposing increasing the expenditures by $200,000, but we'd also have grant revenues that weren't budgeted of $177,000. And so that's where we get a net increase of that $23,000 in the current year budget if we were to adopt that amendment or So in the harbor, we had $2.1 million in budgeted CIP, and through December we'd spent $300,000. I know there are a lot of moving parts coming, so I expect the harbor to be spending a lot of money in the next half of the year, with the mole float rehabilitation being the one that was discussed earlier tonight. Bob or Orrin, I'm sure, could speak to these projects much better than I can, but I do expect there to be more movement in harbor capital in the second half of the year, at least from a spend perspective. And then lastly, and I believe this is my last slide, in the other fund capital projects, the kind of the biggest one of note would be in the solid waste. All that is the transfer we make from the city's general account to the landfill trust account. So as of the fiscal year that just ended, fiscal year 21, we had on the books a landfill liability for closure and post-closure costs of $4.6 million. We had a landfill trust balance of $2.68 million. So we have a $2 million gap, if you will, that needs to be closed. And the last flyover report we had, which was as of December of 2020, we had 7 years and 3 months of useful life in that landfill. So now we're about 6 years worth of useful life in that landfill to close that gap between the landfill trust account and the landfill liability. I anticipate as part of the budget discussions for next year, we'll have more discussion on the landfill. And with that, that is what I have for the presentation.
Wow.
Unless they're open to any questions.
I just have a general question. First of all, thank you for being so conservative, number one. It kept us all out of a lot of hot water, I think. And number two, I'd like to say that it's amazing when people hear him speak, how many people say, he is so concise and clear and knowledgeable. You do an awesome job, so thank you.
Thank you.
And the third question, then the comment is, when will we be able to look at bringing back some of the benefits to our employees?
That's a great question. Dave and I have already kind of started those conversations, and I anticipate as we start, my focus now is working on next year's budget, and so we're going to have those conversations as part of that budget building exercise. And so I would say, we've tentatively already started talking a timeline, and we do want to have a meeting with council before or earlier in the budget process than we have in prior years. And so those type of items can be discussed, I would say then, to make sure that we are kind of on the same page with those.
I mean, if there's any way we don't have to wait till July 1 with a new budget, if there's anything we could do in the interim.
We always can come back to you with, if directed, we can come back to you with a staff report outlining what different scenarios would look like from a budget amendment standpoint. So we don't have to wait for the budget process to do that. We didn't plan for any step increases, cost of living increases in this year's budget, but if directed, we can come back and show what those budget amendments would look like.
I'd like to look at them before July, because they took quite a hit.
And all 4 of our labor negotiations come up again in June, is that correct? All 4?
That's correct.
Okay.
Do we want that to come back maybe before? Okay.
I think we could even get some information sent to us on what that would look like and then determine if we should put it on an agenda.
Well, if he's going to bring it, if they're going to give it to all 4 of us, we should be doing it here in the open, I would think.
And what I can, if it's easier, is I can discuss with Dave, but we can even do it just as a more informal, this is what, it doesn't necessarily have to be a formal. I can give a short presentation on what different scenarios would look like from a budget amendment standpoint.
That would be great.
Yeah, and if I could, Mayor and Council, I mean, Matt and I talked about this, in fact, today from a timeline standpoint. It's a fairly aggressive timeline. We have dates in February and March to prepare internally to bring to Council shortly thereafter, so.
Okay. All right. Comments or questions? Yesenia, back wherever you are.
Great job, Matt.
I guess the one thing I did just want to add, just kind of moving into the next items of conversation, while this has been certainly a positive report as far as city revenues, I just wanted to kind of reiterate that we are, from a staffing position, down 15 full-time equivalents from where we were at pre-COVID. There have been no raises or cost of living increases in the last 2 years. And one of my goals also for these budgets that we haven't necessarily historically been doing is to present budgets that fully fund our OPEB obligations, so our other post-employment retirement benefits that we offer, as well as fully fund vehicle replacement. So we're really setting money aside year after year to make sure we have the monies necessary to replace the fleet when we need to. So, while there's certainly a lot to be positive about and look forward to, we still have a lot of plans to get to where we want to be fiscally.
I know.
Can you just repeat the full-time employee equivalent that we're down by?
15.
15?
Yep. So I believe pre-COVID, If you look at the fiscal year 20 budget, it was around 83, and in the current budget, it was around 68, give or take.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's huge.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Okay, well,
Nicely done.
I've never seen a finance director get a standing O. And thank you, girls, for staying as long as you did. Okay, is there a motion to receive the report and authorize the proposed budget amendments?
I'll make a motion to receive and file and authorize the proposed budget amendments.
Okay,
I will second.
Go ahead, Michael, call for the vote. I'm assuming there's nobody on the machine.
There is none.
Okay.
Could I just say thanks to both Denise and Matt for making sure that we were in a position to be in this spot now.
Oh, I know.
And to city staff for making the cuts and taking the cuts they did. I appreciate all of you guys and your crews working to make it work.
Yeah, they had to make some tough decisions,
Yeah.
which we supported.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye. Item number 6, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd also like to thank Matt for that report. That was an excellent report. Item number 6 is, as we know, we have a general municipal election June 7th, 2022. So at this time, we'd ask council to choose among the listed options that's been provided to you regarding payment of costs, including printing costs of statements and translation costs for candidate statements in the voter pamphlet, and 2, adopt the election resolutions in order to get this on the ballot. That's calling for the election, the resolution requesting LA County Board of Supervisors to provide election services, and a resolution adopting regulations for candidate statements, in addition to directing the city clerk to publish the notice of the election.
Okay.
So it is the one resolution where we're asking you to make the decisions, and just to refresh for years and years, it's been limited to the 200 words on the candidate statement. You've chosen to have the candidate that is going to put a statement in the voter pamphlet, which isn't, I just want to remind the public that it does not go in the vote by mail information that gets sent to the households. It's just in the voter pamphlet that everybody gets the candidate statement. And so we asked for the candidate to pay for that printing as well as for the translation, and we have to, by law, have it in 2 languages.
I have a question. When you start working with the county, depending that we're going with them, is to I don't think the voting polls should be on private property. And it was up at there, and then something was and also at the casino, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it went back to the country club.
Yeah, and I don't know, if there could be a discussion, they could find some place that's in, not on private land, it would be good, because I don't think that's how it works on the mainland. I could be wrong.
I don't know. I've been to many, when I lived in the big world, many polling places that were in people's private homes, garages.
What state were you in?
Sacramento.
Oh,
Yeah.
Texas.
So I think it's more of the best locale to have it and for people to have access to the polls.
So there was complaints that
Yeah.
that was too high up, and even though they have that little lift in the back, and then going all the way out to the casino, and then going upstairs to vote, isn't really
But what
very
happened to
accessible.
the use of the hall at the Catholic Church?
Oh, they've used that forever, huh?
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you.
Oh, but I don't know why they don't.
I don't know if Cindy, if it involved, because now it's not just for one day for voting, they, open it for so many
Oh,
days
right,
now, and that's one of the
right,
problems
right.
also with not having it at City Hall, is because it would interfere with the rest of the services that the city has to do in order for
Oh,
us
I
to
see.
accommodate
That makes
all
sense.
the voters.
That makes sense.
Are we allowed to do it at the teen center?
Or Tremont Hall?
Teen Center
middle of
doesn't have
town?
access.
We have provided lists to the county, and they go and they check out all the places to see which one will go into an agreement with them and what services they're looking for there.
Okay.
We can certainly make sure that they have those on the list or suggest them again.
Yeah, okay. And As I recall on that thing, there's a place for your age. Can we remove that? When you redo the candidate statement, there's the age there. Can we put NA or just over 18 or over 21?
I can ask the county that, Annie. I don't have an answer for you right now.
I'm kind of being facetious, but, all right.
So if we just start first with the number of words on the statement, is the 200 words still good?
Sure.
Is there consensus for 200 words?
Yes.
Yep. And to have the candidate pay for printing of their statement and the voter pamphlet?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to ask if we wanted, just trying to remove roadblocks for people from running from office, if we wanted to have the city cover that cost.
There's a process
Yeah.
that they can come to the clerk and I can give them all the paperwork, and they're required to jump through some hoops.
Yeah.
But definitely you are not required to pay if you qualify.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you have to qualify.
But you have to qualify?
Yes.
Okay. I mean.
And that is included in the packets that we're giving to candidates.
Okay.
And then the next thing would be paying for the translation by the candidate.
I'd say okay, too.
Yep. So how about if we just have a separate vote just on those 3 items in that resolution?
Okay.
To make sure there's no,
Do we have to vote on the 200 words or just the printing costs for the?
if you're good with the 200 words and paying, the candidate paying for the printing as well as the translation, that would be in the one resolution adopting the regulations for the candidate statements.
Okay.
Is there any reason why we wouldn't just keep going and wrap it all into one?
If you want to, I just wanted to make sure it was clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, can we take them as separate?
So it's the 3 resolution as well as directing
The 200 words I'm fine with, and the 200 words I'm fine with, if we're all okay with that, but the payment I would like to take as a separate item.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to approve the maximum words per statement is 200. The translation cost, you want the translation cost separate too? So
Well, I think it'd be appropriate to take each one of the items, and then because you have one resolution, so you could decide if, you have 3 votes for each one of the items, and then you have a motion for the resolution with those agreed upon items.
Okay.
Oh, I see. So moved.
Second. Call for the vote.
It's a little confusing, but I understand.
So we're going to have 3 separate votes then, one for each part of it
So
right now.
the first vote then is for the 200 words, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Councilmember De La Rosa.
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle.
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy.
Aye.
Mayor Marshall.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that the voter pamphlet and the translation be paid by the candidate. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, moved in second. Call for the vote.
Councilmember De La Rosa.
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle.
No?
Councilmember Ponce.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy.
Aye.
Mayor Marshall.
Aye. And I think we know your reason. You don't want
Right.
to deter.
I'm just trying
anybody.
to deter, I don't want to deter people for the money being the reason they don't run.
But I know people have used that waiver thing.
Yes.
Have
Sure,
gotten that
sure,
approved
absolutely,
before.
yeah, and I know that that's available for people if they want to, they can do that.
But you didn't want to even kind of put them through that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think
If
when
we don't
we-
have to, we don't have to.
When we talked about this in prior years, my reason for not agreeing to have the city pay for it is that is taxpayers' dollars. And so that's why I would vote no against it.
And it's
Makes
optional.
total sense.
And
yeah.
it's optional.
Correct, yeah. No,
Oh, yeah,
makes
they don't
sense.
have to have it at all. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, and then the resolutions. Can we?
Well, no, there's
There's one more.
another, isn't the
No,
translation?
I.
And we need the one for the,
You did those together?
just the
Yeah.
candidate statement.
I put
Did that.
the translation and all of that in one, yes,
Into one, yeah.
yes. So can we bunch all these, in item 2, bunch all those resolutions if you so choose?
Okay, so can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we know what's going to go in that resolution. Now you can do this in one.
Yes.
Oh,
motion.
okay.
If you'll adopt all three resolutions, one calling the election, one requesting the LA County Board of Supervisors to provide the election services, and the next one is adopting the regulations for candidate statements, and lastly, to direct the city clerk to publish the notice of election, which would go hopefully in this Friday's paper, and on that notice, it gives the public that we are calling for the election is for 1 seat as the mayor and 2 seats of council, and when the election date is, and what
Okay.
time the polls are open.
So moved.
I'll make the motion.
Well, I'll second. Michael
Moved
can
in second?
Yep.
Okay, call for the vote.
Councilmember De La Rosa,
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle,
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce,
Aye.
and Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy.
Aye.
Mayor Marshall.
Aye. Okay, item number 7.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 7 is a consideration and adoption of the resolution placing the general tax measure on the June 7th, 2022 general municipal election ballot to establish a 0.25% general transactions and use sales tax. And this is also a multi-part request, that being that we need a resolution calling for the placement of the 0.25% tax on the June 7th ballot, a resolution requesting the County of Los Angeles to consolidate this election with the statewide primary election, and finally a resolution setting deadlines and rules for the submission of a primary and rebuttal arguments for and against the proposed sales tax measure. I would like to point out to council, since these items were sent to you last week, there has been one minor revision, that being in the ballot language and all references to the same throughout these resolutions. Instead of general city services for the use of the tax, it'll be general government use, if that makes sense.
And council, the reason for that is there is an initiative that will be considered in November of this year, that if that measure passes, that measure provides that if you have the language general government use, you don't have to take a revote on the ballot measure. But if you don't, this measure to be passed in November is retroactive to January 1st of this year. And so we're just making the language consistent with what that ballot measure would require if it passes. And because there's a chance it may pass, we're just making this consistent with what could be a potential future law. Does not change in any manner how we can use it or the substance of the tax. It's just changing the words, the 2 words that city manager indicated. And this will be on this measure as well as the other following measure for transient occupancy tax.
Okay.
Are we, well, I guess my comments regarding this is I'm not in favor of raising any taxes or fees. And I'm, concerned about the number of increases in all kinds of fees and services and taxes that we've, city council in general, when I say we, have done. And this is just another one along the line. Our entire packet is a lot of increases tonight in general. So where I'm struggling is that the LA County has the cap of the 10.25%. We're currently at 10%. If we don't vote to put this on the ballot, it leaves us open for the county to come in and take that 0.25% away from us. And so, I've got it in my notes for the next conversation, item number 8 as well, that I feel very strongly that when we have an opportunity to put something on a ballot to allow every member of the community to have their say, I think is really important. So while I'm not thoroughly in favor of increasing taxes, I would be in favor for the reason that I don't want the county to get the money and that I want our community to be able to have their vote and allow us an opportunity to put additional information out there. And then subsequent to that, because in a way, I feel that I'm caving, so to speak, on what I feel very strongly about, I would love an opportunity for us to take that 0.25% sales tax, whatever that is, and earmark it towards capital improvement projects. And if I realize that we can't necessarily do that on the documentation for the ballot measure itself, however, I would like something to come back to us during the budget process. If we could please talk more about how to earmark a certain percentage of our general revenue each year in general, increasing that significantly for capital improvement projects.
And then I just wanted to add on to that, Cindy. I totally agree on the 0.25%. Not real excited about doing that, but if we don't do it, LA County is going to do it, and we're not going to have any say as to where that money goes.
Exactly.
We will have no control.
Well, it's the county. It's the
And it
county's
won't come
money.
to the
It's
city.
And it will
not-
not. It will not come back to Avalon.
No.
So I think I'm in support of putting the 0.25% tax on, and I like the idea of after it is in place, if we do get it passed, that we do earmark those funds for capital improvements. I think it's great. So
thank you.
No, and I think, well, I agree also. The one thing is, in terms of affecting the locals, groceries are not taxed. And I think that's what most people buy in this town are groceries. And then they buy everything else over town and have it shipped through Amazon. Or however else they shop or where they shop. So I don't think it's going to affect the locals so much. And I guess when they go, there's tax on food if you go to a restaurant and that kind of thing. And in a way, that's a luxury. So most of that will be, the brunt of that will probably be on visitors. But Lisa, you might have a comment.
Yeah, I think I'm maybe slightly in disagreement with everyone, but in agreement about the tax. Only in that I think that we live in a society where to make improvements and have infrastructure repairs and be able to do things that we want to do, you have a certain amount of responsibility to pay tax so that that happens. And the comment we get all the time is, oh, the city doesn't have enough money to do so-and-so, or the city can't do this because they don't have enough money saved up to do so-and-so. Cool, this is a way to do that. Let's do that.
Yeah.
It's 25 cents on $100. Give me a break. You can spare a quarter. Like, we're going to be okay on this. This is not, the whole reason it works is because it's a lot of people with a very small amount of money that adds up over time, and it makes sense. So I appreciate your concerns about not wanting to add taxes and fees, and there's other places where we definitely are way heavier than that. This is a very small percentage fee. I think it deserves to be on the ballot, and I would ask that we do so.
Yes, Cindy, do you have a comment?
I actually had it on my notes, exactly what Cindy said, although it's hard that we're doing a lot of raising on fees, and I don't necessarily want to do that. I do think ultimately it's up to the community to decide, and I do think that was a great suggestion, Cindy, of making sure that we if this passes, we do get those funds and not the county.
Yeah, that's exactly. And along those lines, because we did absolutely nothing last time it was put on the ballot.
Right.
And I don't know, I'm curious what we can do. Can we make signs? I mean, how do we get the word out that we want people to do this? If we're all in.
So under the law, Mayor, what the city can do is the city is allowed to provide information about the measure, but the city cannot advocate for the measure using city funds. And so we would be looking at any kind of information the city would like to put out about this measure, make certain that it is informational only. And if we can do that, then the city can provide that information to the residents of Avalon to consider how to vote on this matter.
So if a private individual wanted to put up signs that said, you know, the people for the quarters, you know, the 25% or whatever, could they do that?
Yes. As long as it's the limitation on city funds being used to advocate for the measure.
Okay. Because just within the council meeting and putting general information out that most of it won't probably be read, it's just there needs to be, if we're all in support, some kind of hoopla, so maybe
Yeah,
we
I
can
see
find
what you're
somebody in
saying.
the community that wants to kind of spearhead that. Do they have to be this organized thing, or they can call just the people for the tax or something?
Put a sign in your window.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
just put a sign up. I don't think you have to, I mean, unless you're paying for it as an entity, then you have to list it, I'm sure, but.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
And I think, along with the item 8 on our agenda, which is also an increase, and I realize that the TOT increase is paid for by visitors to the island, but if you look at the statistics, California's income tax is 13.3%. Sales tax for California starts at 8.68%. Corporate tax is 8.84%. And California pays the highest taxes in the country. We are taxing ourselves out of being able to live here, and we in Avalon are taxing ourselves out of living in Avalon. And that is my basis of my concern, is that, sure, we're creating more income in our environment, which is also raising the value of our properties and increasing our property taxes. For those of us paying business tax, we're pricing ourselves out of being able to operate, comfortably in this state. And so I look at all these companies moving out, Tesla moving their operations to Texas, which has one of the lowest tax rates in the country. And I'm just trying to find a balance for us that it seemed to, I mean, zero offense to staff in any way, but it seems like a very tax-heavy agenda tonight. And I think that really got me thinking about what do we want to be when we grow up, because we can't consistently keep raising taxes and fees.
Well, it was good that they brought them all up at once, in my mind. Instead of one here and one there, then you lose sight. Oh yeah, we did we did all the sewer fees and all that, and then that was so many months ago. And so in a way to look at them all at one point and look at the benefit to the community and or the pros and cons, the pluses and minuses, I think it's all kind of a good time to look at them all. And then we also have budget coming up, so.
Yeah, true.
So.
Okay, we better vote on this.
So I will make a motion for a resolution of the City Council of the City of Avalon, California, calling for the placement of a general tax measure on the ballot for the June 7th, 2022 general municipal election for the submission to the qualified voters of an ordinance to enact a general transaction and use tax at the rate of 1/4%.
I'll second.
Moved and second. Any comments on the machine?
There is none, Annie.
Okay. Any comments from council or the audience? Okay, call for the vote, please.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye. Okay. Item number 8. And we thought this was.
Well, do we also have to have a resolution, or the other resolutions
Oh, right.
to adopt those? So, Mayor, we have, if I could.
Sure.
We have a resolution, the next one, a resolution of the City Council, City of Avalon, California, requesting the Board of Supervisors of the County of Los Angeles to consolidate a general municipal election to be held on June 7th, 2022, with the statewide primary election to be held on that date pursuant to Section 10403 of the Elections Code.
So moved.
Second? Call for the vote.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye.
And then third, right?
I'm sorry, we still have, Denise, is that correct? We have the other one, the third one?
Yes, I apologize. I thought Michael did all of them when he made his motion. So yes, they would have to do all
Okay,
three.
so that we also have an ordinance of the people of the City of Avalon, California, adding Article 8 to Chapter 3 of Title 3 of the Avalon Municipal Code to enact a 1/4% general transaction and use tax to be administered by the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration.
So moved.
I'll second.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye. One of the things we could have talked about, but we didn't, is it says for a period of 10 years. We could have
That's the next one, Mayor. That's item 8.
Oh,
the
oh
next
my
one.
God, I'm so,
Yeah.
damn, I'm ahead of myself.
Nope.
Behind or whatever I am.
No, we're there now, though.
Okay, oh yes, I'm sorry.
So item 8 before you is consideration and adoption of resolutions placing a transient occupancy tax measure on the June 7th, 2022 general municipal election to increase the TOT by 1 percentage point and reserving the increase for the city's general fund. And there's also a sunset provision, Mayor, as you indicated, for a period of 10 years on this piece. So at this time, we would need, again, vote on 3 resolutions calling for the measure to appear on the ballot, requesting the County of Los Angeles to consolidate this with the statewide primary election to be held on June 7th, and a resolution setting deadlines for the rules of submission of primary and rebuttal arguments for and against the proposed TOT measurement.
Well, one of the comments, a lot of the comments that I was getting when they were talking about the T-bid being on the agenda and all of that was a lot of people said, boy, but I sure don't mind giving the money to the city to help with their infrastructure. And because we do, for all the things Matt's talking about, and if and when the T-bid passes and they are successful in bringing a lot more people over, our infrastructure is shot. We need a lot of help. We're not getting federal assistance. So I don't have a problem with the 1% going to the City of Avalon's general fund.
And I guess the same holds true for item 7 for me, that I'm very excited that this is something that's going to go on the ballot so the community can share their thoughts on it. So I will definitely vote for this because it goes out to the community.
Yes.
That being said, again, you know, I'm very concerned about line item after line item of taxes and the amount of overall tax. And while I can't speak to the other item, you know, that would potentially create any new taxes, creating another line item on the taxing. So that being said, I think it's great that this is going to go out to the community, but it doesn't say, it sends these funds to the general fund. And I'm concerned about those funds getting absorbed rather than specifically earmarked.
And we're the ones that tell them how to spend it.
Right, and that's, again, so I'm just reiterating that we talk about what we would like those funds to be used for, but you know, I would hold the city council true to their word of saying, if we're gonna campaign for this, saying we want to do this and we want to do something for our infrastructure, that I want to see us act on that and actively put a larger percentage into our capital improvement savings.
Yeah, I'll be curious if all those people say that they really wanted it to come to us.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
and that's where I feel it's important to put these types of things on the ballot and let the community speak, because we are all speaking to a handful of members of our community, but we're not hearing from our constituents, which is the city as a whole.
Yeah.
So.
Good, okay. Is there a motion to adopt the following resolutions? 1, 2, and 3?
I'll move to adopt the 3 resolutions. Do you need me to read them out, or are we good to?
You don't have to read
If
it
you
all.
said staff recommendation.
For
we
staff
can just-
recommendations, for attachments 1, 2, and 3 for the resolutions that need to be
Well,
done.
okay, let me ask, do we want it for 10 years?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like the fact that there's a limit on it.
Oh, no, but I was wondering something less.
Oh, no.
Okay, you're fine with that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, there's been a motion and a second. Call for the vote.
I'm sorry, who was the
Did we
second?
get a second?
I thought it was you and you.
I got the motion.
I'll second.
There you go.
Thank you. Any comments from the audience?
Finance?
Do you have anything, Denise?
Nope, no e-comments. Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye. Okay, item number 9 and our final.
Thank you.
item.
Thank you, Mayor. Final item tonight is item 9, which is an appointment to fill one expired term that we have on the Planning Commission. And at this time, the mayor and council had received 4 individuals that filed applications. Bruce Fertig, Julie Gilbert, Steve Rameri, and Mary Schickling. Those were provided pursuant to City Code. Mayor Marshall can make the appointment with the approval of council.
So I did interview the 4 applicants on Thursday and Friday of last week. They were all phone conversations. And of course, anybody who wants to come in and help the city, of course, we always respect their wanting to provide service and that kind of thing. And all of them were good and all had different, all came from a kind of a different space. I didn't feel any of them were getting on to be self-serving or, because they didn't have an agenda. But after interviewing them, Bruce Fertig had been on the Planning Commission for at least 30 years. He's got a lot of knowledge coming forward. He is available. One of his exciting things that he said was that there's going to be water allocations coming from Edison, and that means there's going to be projects coming before the Planning Commission. And he's very good at having all that knowledge. So that being said, I would like to recommend Bruce Fertig, and so
I just have a process question. Just very curious question. Do you have to be a resident of the city of Avalon to apply for any commission seats?
Yes. Or have a business.
Or have a business that operates, you can have a business that operates in the community but not physically live here, correct?
Yes, well,
so that is, I'm sorry, Annie.
No, go ahead.
There's something I think that we really need to clean up in our code, because the whole purpose of it is to live and reside in the community, so you have a sense of what's going on and you can make a decision based on that. And then there's the way it's worded in our municipal code, it does sound like it's, or if you have a business interest, that you should be able to, regardless if you live here or not.
Okay. That's how I interpreted it, and that was the comment that I had made. So I wanted to clarify for myself whether or not it was.
I think that's a part of our code we need to clean up.
Okay.
I can say it specifically for Planning Commission. I didn't look at the other boards and commissions if it has identical language, but on this appointment, it does have that specific language.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I was under the impression you had to be here a certain number of months of the year to qualify for service on that board. Is that not correct?
I believe that what you might be referring to is you have to attend so many meetings per year.
I don't know why.
Actually, I believe what it is if you are qualifying under the ordinance as written, if you want to qualify as a resident, there's a certain minimal time you have to have lived in Avalon before you apply. And so again, after you consider this item, if it's council's pleasure, we can bring back an amendment, a suggested amendment to the code to clean up it and require that you actually be an Avalon resident, if that's what you want. But right now, you don't have to be. And I think the 9 month is for if you are applying as a resident. Again, that is a factor that you may consider if someone only owns a business or a really small business, or maybe something like that. Does that make that person qualified? That is up for the council to consider when making the appointment.
I think maybe we should tidy it up, though, because I feel that if you have a business in this community and you're employing members that live in the community, you have a stake. But then how much participation do you have in the community? I don't know. It should not factor in this decision. It was just a moment of, because I believe I said the wrong thing.
No, but the question has been, has been, and Denise had to respond to someone, and I mean, it is a question that should be clarified.
Well, then on the Bruce issue, then I make a motion to approve Bruce to the Planning Commission.
And I'll second it since I recommended it.
Sure.
Councilmember De La Rosa.
No.
Councilmember Lavelle.
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy.
Aye.
Mayor Marshall.
Aye. So something I just want to bring up, and with all due respect to you, Yesenia, and just different things. To me, if somebody votes in the, kind of in opposition of the group, I mean, we all express when we're supporting something or whatever, but I also think when we're voting no on something, we should be able to tell the community, because how else do they get to know who their council members are and what they're thinking if all they just say is no? Just my personal opinion. I'm not putting you on the spot, Yesenia, but I don't know. I think it's something that we should think about. I mean, I would want somebody to know if I voted no, because, I don't know, just as we tell them when we're.
Would you like me to express my reasoning?
If you'd like to. I'm not, again, I don't want to put you on the spot. I just made the comment. I didn't mean to pick on you.
Yeah, just so it's clear, Councilwoman, it's not required that you can just vote no, but if you want to, you can give the reasons. It's not required.
Yeah, so you don't have to.
Okay, for me, it was the same thing as last time. I had my full support for Mary.
Oh, okay. All righty. Thank you. Okay. All right. Let's go to closed session and do something fun.
I don't think we have a close
We don't have a closed session.
I know we
It was
don't.
cold.
I know we don't. And we're getting out of here so early, so we got to stick around and do something. Okay, well, if there's no further business, and by the way, Tony Zeiler, I believe, is coming back on March 1st.
Oh, he's here. I saw him
He
today.
is, but he's going to go back one more time and then
okay.
come back on March 1st. So, Tony, if you're listening, welcome back and have a good evening.
Good night.
Meeting adjourned.
Good night, Tony.